All right, everybody, we are under recording. All right, welcome to Team Building Tuesday. Just a couple announcements before we get started. Tonight, guy, by the way, is, in my opinion, it could be one of the most valuable Team Building Tuesdays you've ever attended because of what we're going to talk about and discuss. Because we're going to talk about how to close business plan meetings, right? Leading to growth, okay? How to close business plan meetings leading to growth. I have a thing here, and if I want you guys to all grab a notepad and a pen. It's just I was blessed enough to attend a conference last week. A couple hours each day for 5 days with Tony Robbins and some other people. It was all virtual. And one of the things that really stuck to me is if you just listen to what I say and just kind of absorb, you'll remember 10% of what you get. But if you listen and take notes, just the physical, the act of taking a note, it goes up to 40 to 45% absorption. So understand that, and then when you go back, you'll absorb more by rereading it, but it goes to 40 to 45%. And if you're really immersed and you're really paying attention, you have no other distractions, and you are interactive, and you're commenting in the chat and shaking your head and physically getting involved, it could be up to 90%, okay? What I'm going to recommend everybody, because this could be a game changer for so many people, and I'm not just talking about the new people. I'm talking about the people that have been around a while, that maybe aren't where they want to be yet. They're on their way for sure, but they're not at that level, whatever that ultimate level that they want is, and they're looking for an answer. This could be one of them, okay? So this could be a big piece to it, because this right now is you're going to learn stuff that I learned from JR. You're going to learn stuff that I learned from Dennis, like JR live in person building. I learned from Dennis. And also I learned from just application, doing things and making mistakes, which, by the way, experience is a mother of skill. I mean, the experience and making mistakes in the process is where you really get it. So take some notes, be immersed, be engaging, participate. Yell out loud if you have to, just when we ask you to answer, do it, immerse yourself in it, and we're going to have some fun going forward. But the official title of tonight is called Tips and Strategies on Closing, just closing. How to close meetings, like plan showing meetings, to convert new partners and start trial runs. To convert new partners and start trial runs, okay? You have two goals when you get done showing the plans: to start trial runs and to convert new partners. It's not just to start trial runs only, and it's not just to convert new partners only. It's both. And it's a choice based upon how it's received and where they're at in the process, okay? So it's very important to understand that process moving forward. And we're going to get deep into that as we go on here. And I'm excited to share that with you. So, remember, every Tuesday night we have a Team Building Tuesday session, and man, we're packed up tonight. Good job, everybody. And we talk about different strategies and tips, and some weeks are even some more social weeks, where we always learn something together, but we're together, we're interactive, we're part of the community and the tribe and the family that we have as a team, and you'll hear different strategies from different people, and also different experiences from different people, so you can have people to relate to and put into action. But everything we do on these nights is pointless if you don't take action and implement what you learned. And that's the biggest point that you need to do. Take action and instantly install what you learn into your everyday business building activities, or take action and make business activities happen so you have something to install it into. Because, the things that the biggest mistakes people can make is to learn something and then never put it into action. That's actually stupid, to be quite frank, right? Right? Just not to pick on anybody, but it's like a dumb thing to do. Learn something that can make a difference and then never apply it into your life, right? You have to take action, right? And be smart. The smartest thing that anybody can do is apply what they learned and really apply it. So, we're going to talk about closing meetings, and we're going to start this presentation or these details, I have my notes right here for you guys. We're going to start with the end in mind, and here's what I'm going to talk about. We just got done showing them, and this is all about how to close business. How to close business at the end of your presentation. And there's a couple different pieces of business that you're looking to close at the end of your presentation. And I'm going to talk about each one here in a second. So the first thing at the end of the presentation we're going to do is we're going to thank everybody for being there. We're get done the presentation. We're going to thank everybody for being there, right? And we are going to get a few people that are unfranchised owners. So step one, when you get done a presentation, you get a few people to tell their story of what their experience has been so far. So that's step one, right? Now, if you're in a one-on-one or two-on-one presentation where it's just you talking to somebody, you say, let me tell you what my experiences with this has been so far. So you tell them what it's done for you and where it's either where it has taken you or where it's projected to take you. Always forecast and broadcast where it's taking you. Understood? That's the first thing. That's step one, right? I want you to write that down. Step one, get unfranchised owners to share their experience and what it's done for them or where it's taking them. You know, by the end of next year, I'll probably not be working anywhere else but here. I used to say that all the time. By the end of next year, essentially 2 years later, right? By the end of next year, instead of saying in 2 years, it sounds a long time, but by the end of next year, you understand how that's received a little bit differently, right? It's so powerful when that happens. And by the end of next year, if you're already, hey, I'm full-time now, but by the end of next year, I plan to have helped, over 100 people hit professional coordinator. Like that's mine right now. By the end of next year, I'm planning really by the end of this year, but by the end of next year, right? I'm planning to have over 100 people that are at that, 60,000-ish range on up, professional coordinator, full-time incomes and on in the business, and over 1,000 people that are executive coordinators that are making thousands of dollars in the business, as a part-time application, right? So that's the first thing we go around. That's number one. Then number two, we're going to go to each guest. And we're going to ask them a question. All right? And guys, you want to have this. And when you're first starting this, if you haven't been doing this yet, and I'll be honest with you, like over the last couple years, this has somewhat been lost a little bit by all of us because we were learning how to apply what we did in person for years and years and years into technology. And the mistake that some of us made, me included in this, was sometimes thinking that this process wouldn't work the same online. Guess what? It does. It does. We just need to do it. And it just was, I think it was we were uncomfortable. Even though I had a Zoom account for 9 years and I was doing some business online, I was just uncomfortable. I was just hoping that we were going to come back to live sooner than end up happening, right? So we have to be able to pivot, right? So the number two thing is you're going to go around to every guest. And you're going to ask each guest a question. And remember, this is for one-on-ones, two-on-ones, small HBPs. The speaker does not have the capacity to do this after a UBP because it can be a lot of guests, right? After a UBP, by the way, a UBP should be a second look most of the time. You understand? The UBP, the official unfranchised, should be a second look most of the time. But if it's not, if the first look, if you bring guests on, you need to get back with them directly and install what I'm talking about right now. Do this exact same process with them. So, number two is go around to every single guest and say, where are you at? Or you want to say, hey, what did you find most unique or different about what you saw tonight? That's one of my favorite areas. What did you like most is the common question that JR always teaches. Or you can say, what did you find that was most unique or different about this? Made it different than anything else you'd ever seen. What was it that you saw that was really unique and different about this? Right? And that's what I'll ask, and I let them answer. So that's the second thing. Number two. Now, they're going to answer, oh, I noticed this, I noticed that, I noticed it. And I'll either say, that's what I noticed too. That's what really stood out to me. Or, yeah, that's a really good point. That is a very important point. Just agree with them, right? and say, "Oh, that's a really good point. That's really accurate. That's really, really neat." And then maybe elaborate a little bit on it and say, "So let me ask you this question on a scale of 1 to 10, right? So this is in part two, like part 2A. What did you find so unique or different? And then part 2B, right? The follow up question they have to be asked back to back is if you had to rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 means thanks for inviting me. The bald guy that I was listening to, I always make a joke about it. The bald guy I'm listening to is ugly, crazy, and I don't want to be involved in business with this guy because he's full of garbage, right? That would be me, right? That's me, right? Just a joke about it, right? Or you say, you know, if you had to rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 meaning thanks for the invite. I'm not looking for a business personally right now at all for myself. I'm happy where I'm at with my business and career. However, I'll support and be a customer and keep in mind to give referrals in the future. That's 1. 10 is get me started right this second. This is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. If you had to rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you find yourself there? Yep, exactly, Mileva. That's exactly right. And then they answer, right? Now, you got it with your in your notes. You almost want to put, and I want you guys to formulate this in your mind and take notes in the way you understand it most. I have slides for this, but I realize that I want you, by taking notes, to formulate the flow of this in your own, how you are visualizing it instead of the way I visualize it. I've noticed when I teach certain things like this in particular, when people do this, they understand it more effectively and it retains better. Okay? So there you go, Jewel. Jewel said she had 2 guests. 1 was a 1 and 1 was a 10. And by the way, that's great for both of them because that's normal, right? And at least, so that's great. It makes your life easy. 1 is if somebody says, I'm a 1. Okay, great. Thanks for coming. I appreciate your time. What I'd like to do is set up a follow-up. Obviously, what am I setting a follow-up with a 1 for? Because I'm setting up a follow-up to sit down, they said they're going to be a customer and support. I'm going to create you a customer account. I'm going to get you a sample of product to try, probably a daily essentials packet or whatever it is you want to give them as a sample, right? They want to be a customer. And we're going to set you up with a customer account, and I'm going to give you a tour of the site and show you how it works. So you can earn cash back, right? That's what I'm saying with a 1. A 10, by the way, going through this and preparing for tonight, refreshed my memory, and it refocused me on how I should be closing my meetings now. You understand what I mean? Like when you start teaching something is when you really understand it the most effectively, and you remind yourself to not forget to do things, because we all can be at a point where it's, you know what I mean? We lose that focus, right? So on a scale of 1 to 10, where are we at? So they say they're a 1, great. Let's get a follow-up. I'll set you up with your free customer account and give you a tour on all the benefits of the site, right? And you schedule their follow-up and you sit down with them on Zoom or in person, set up their free customer account. Don't tell them to do it. You do it with them. You know it's done if you do it with them. And then you get them a sample, and then you give them a tour of the site, right? Or you can also sit with them and you can watch the video tour of the site that Ken Anderson did, which is awesome. Part 1, right? And it's awesome. But yeah, it's you're exactly right, Jack. The best way to learn something is to teach it. So that's 1. If somebody says they're anywhere between, let's just go to a 10. If somebody says they're a 10, this is my next question. Are you ready for this, guys? This is called a test close. This is called a test close. Oh, you're a 10, great. Is there anything preventing you from getting started right now? You're a 10? Okay, is there anything preventing you from getting started right now? No, not at all. Okay, let's do it. Now, a lot of people say, well, wait, don't I have to process them and do this and do that? I'm going to tell you my answer. No. When you're registering them, you're going to give them some prerequisites for you to let them start. And you can adjust at that moment, right? Pat, I did this exact thing the other night, right? Is Miriam on? I don't see her. Okay.
I
She might
don't.
have
Th-
been on as a guest too. I was going to ask her to say something,
I
but
Yeah, I
not
don't know if.
Miriam. Miriam. That's a different one.
Yeah, I don't see her in the
I
list,
don't
but
see her either. Okay. So anyway, but I said it, and she said, "I'm a 10. I want to do it." Right now, so we got with her yesterday, and I said, "Now, before we get started, we're going to make sure that you know everything you need to know. Full disclosure on what we need to do before we get you rolling." Okay. And we went through, what I call my one pager. We just went through, and if anybody wants access to this, it's great. It's just like, this is what getting started. This is the menu items that you need to do to get started. It breaks it down, and I have it updated. I'll re-upload it into the team Facebook page. And by the way, every single one of these things is in the Discord community under resources, right? So if you're looking for it, that's where you'll find it. All through the Dropbox links are all there in the community, right? And if any of this stuff is confusing, I will clarify it. But I'm going to make this a video available. This is going to be available on the YouTube channel on the playlist, and you can go back and rewatch this over and over and over again and take notes, because that's why I'm being really precise here and consolidated on what we're talking about. So if they say, "I'm great," is there anything prevent you from getting started right now? Let me tell you something. Some people need to be test marketed, and they need to be shown that this is going to work. Other people, depending if you understand the DISC personality, you guys know the DISC method of evaluating person. If you try to over process me, right, I'd be gone, and you would have lost a multi-million-dollar earning director if you would have trial run to me. I never would have survived it. You understand what I'm saying? You have to know who you're talking to. But some people, success. Let me tell you something. Success loves speed. And people need to see what? Progress. Even if it is getting started. That's for progress. And the reason why I'm saying this, to be clear, is because Dennis Franks taught me something. And he says, Don, there's different ways to approach the trial run mechanism. JR does it before they register. I do it after they register. Here's why. I'm not as good at follow-up as JR is. JR is a machine, and he's a freak at getting people leading to people, and he's persistent, he's tenacious at it, he doesn't relent. And if you're that good at follow-up, it really, really works. But he said, for me, I need people to put skin in the game and commit financially, at least to a ticket, to a world conference. But I like them registered. Why? Because then if they have a little rain on their parade, right, something doesn't go perfectly right, they have skin in the game, and they just don't disappear into thin air because they had something that didn't go perfectly as planned. How many people understand what I'm saying? You follow what I mean? So if people are ready to go, I will register them, but I'm going to make sure they understand when I'm registering them what it takes. And Pat and I did it. I went through and I said, application, what you need to purchase in product. Here's your ticket for the next local and next corporate event. Here's your auto ship. I don't go through this until they're a 10, though. See, that's the thing. Some people make a mistake, and they start going through requirements and all these type of things when they're still evaluating the business until they're a 10. No, you can scare them away. If you start going through requirements and all these type of things before they even understand the business plan, they get the value of it, you might scare them away before they even understand the value of it. Does this make sense to everybody? How many people understand what I'm saying? Right? Yeah, you get it? Don't make that mistake. We've all done it, by the way, but don't do it, because now you could scare someone. Think, well, you have to do an auto ship every month. You don't have to. First of all, that's not a requirement, but you have to do 150 a quarter is a requirement. But if you tell people that before they realize, wow, the average person uses 500 PV a month, and they understand vertical search to infinity, the volume accumulates till you get paid. No percentages, no levels, no time frames. People get placed underneath the team. And before they understand what that really means and see it, those requirements are irrelevant. Once they're a 10, they just need to know the underlying activities that they have to do to gain that benefit in their life. But if they don't see the benefit, then doing that up front. And so I don't do that until they're a 10. Did everybody get that? That's when they learn what the full disclosure is. And it's on a one-page document. I go right through it, okay? And it's very, very simple. Bing, 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 bing. Is there anything? And by the way, and I always say, a lot of you guys know this if you have done it with, I always say this. And by the way, I just want to let you know right up front before I even started, this isn't an a la carte menu. It's not like you pick and choose what you want to do. This is what's necessary to get started. And I'm going to tell you why. I will not set you up for anything less than the top chance of success. Is that the way you want me to work with you? Or do you want me to piecemeal this for you over time? And do you want to know everything it takes to be successful, or you want to just get little bits at a time? No, I want to know everything. Okay, great. That's what I'm going to do right now. Because that's the only way I work. I only set people up for success in the best chance possible. You understand? And I'd write that one down, by the way. Because you want to use things like this to get it there. Understood? Okay. So that is that. All right. All right, so that was for tens. And I schedule it. And by the way, what happened for Pat is she wasn't ready to commit with everything. So we said, it's no big deal. Listen, it's no problem. Let's just start your try run process. Let's get you educated, because she was at like an 8 at that point. I'm like, and here, so let me revert back, as I said, let's go back to that 1 to 10 thing. Because if you're feeling hesitation here, I don't want you to start at all. I only register 10s. So let's just say, and I told her this. So let's just go back and talk about people that are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You guys got me? This is how I close those situations. All right, I'm an 8. All right, that's awesome. Great. I'm glad you're at 8. Let me just tell you something. I only work with 10s. I can only bring in the business 10s. So let me talk to you about what next step is going to be. And that is, what I'm going to recommend you to do is keep coming back, learning about this, attending some trainings, and testing this thing out. This is how I say it, guys. Until you become either a 10 or a 1, and until that point, I'm going to ask you to keep coming back until you become a 1 or a 10. Does that make sense? Is that fair? Does everybody get that? So now here's the thing. Somebody says, oh, I'm an 8. Most people say, oh, that's awesome. Oh, man, I can't. All right, come back and see it again. Let's get you to a 10. And you get all. I'm like, I'm taking a stance of, I'm in control here. I do not want to work with, right, Matt? Right? I don't want to work with an 8. Not like there's anything wrong with an 8, but an 8 means there's still 2 rankings there that they won't give it what it, they still have hesitation. I don't need to have hesitation. So I don't want them to start until they don't have any hesitation, or at least that they feel like they're a 10. They know it's going to work, right? And how are they going to know it's going to work? They get to the training, which builds their confidence. They see the people at the training, and then they try it out. They test the market out. They try some product, and they get people to evaluate the business. That's a trial run. So you see how the trial run perfectly implements into this process. So Chrissy says, I'm an 8. Oh, that's awesome, Chrissy. Thanks for that. I appreciate the feedback. Let me just tell you something, Chrissy. I can only work with 10s, though. Sorry. And I joke and I smile, But seriously, let me explain to you what I mean by that. Only people that I'm ready to bring into the business and get them started are people that are 10s, because I want them to have zero hesitation and be fully confident this is going to work with them. If you're an 8, that just means there's some hesitation there, and you need to learn more information, and you need to maybe see this thing work for yourself. Right? Maybe see this is going to go progress. And what I'm going to recommend you to do is I want you to come back with me and see this a couple more times, and bring some people to evaluate a couple more times, and test this out and attend the training. That's the most important thing. I'll bring that up in a second. Until you become either a 1 or a 10, and go through that process until you evolve to one of those 2 points. And then we know what to do. But until you're in there, there's uncertainty, you're not sure. Even a 2. I'm going to tell them the same exact thing. Well, there's a chance that you think this might work for you. I want you to keep coming until you become a 1 or a 10. Right? And test it out. Maybe we can make this work. Right? So that's what I do with anything in between. I take a firm stance, and hey, I'm in control. I only want to work with 10s. And by the way, trust me when I tell you that's all you want to work with too. That doesn't mean 10s meaning they're all in and full time. Just like 10s meaning I'm sure this is going to work. And even if I'm only going to put in 4 hours a week, it's going to be a dedicated 4 hours that I believe in 4 hours. You understand what I'm saying? Right? And they have other parts of life, but boom. It's great. Yeah, posture is everything. And body language is huge too. right? And that's good. Very, very, very good. Okay, so that is what happens with the rankings process there. And then after I do that, right, I only work with 10s. So you heard the three different methods of our 1s, our 10s, and then anywhere in between 1s and 10s. Okay, keep coming back until you match the info. Okay, now this is what I'll throw in at the end of that too. And I'm going to go down, I'm going to say this with each different person. I'm going to say, all right, I'm an 8. Okay, great. Well, we only work with 10s. So what I want you to do is keep coming back and evaluating this business and seeing as much information as you can. And the most important thing is attend to training. And at that point in time, you can bring up to training. So the only thing I'm going to ask you to do financially now is buy a ticket to this convention and either attend it live and in person, which we're doing, or you can do it virtual with a watch party or whatever. You just get creative and try to get them committed financially to that ticket. That's one of the most important things at that point, and have them buy that ticket, buy that, register for that event. And then here's what I throw in there. Now watch this. This is the thing that helped me so much when I was growing the fastest. All right. So I went through everything you went through so far, and I'm gonna just go through this one last time after I'm going through it. Very short, simple, and to the point. Part 1, part 2A, 2B, 3, 4, 5. At the end here. But I'm gonna say, let me ask you a quick question. So they agreed so far. They're an 8. Now, I'm going to tell you guys often what happens. Let me just say this too. I've had people say, I'm an 8. I'm an 8. Okay, great. Well, listen, I only work with 10s. All right, well, great. Oh, all right, then I'm a 10 then. The amount of times I've had that happen, I can't even tell you. Right? Because once you take that posture and you let them know, see, they're afraid you're going to try to sell them and convince them to do something. I'm not selling anybody. They're going to have to sell me that they're ready. I'm not selling them to convince them to do anything. Right? And you got to understand, when you do it that way, guess what happens? They receive it better, and then they realize they really do have to qualify to work with us to an extent, okay? So important. But the amount of times that happens to me, I know it happened to Maleva one time too, I recall, and it's happened to me a lot of times. It's pretty cool. So now after that, and then I get them committed to the training, because they need to go to the training, because that's part of that process of evaluating this deeper so they can decide if they're going to be closer to a 1 or a 10. They got to get the training ticket. And by the way, when I'm registering a 10, that's a prerequisite. They have to get a local training ticket and a corporate training ticket when they register, or I'm not doing it. They're not ready because they don't believe in it yet. Wait a minute, you don't think that you're going to make $200 extra? Like, that's the most important thing, and that's the only way you can make this business part-time happen, because you have a system in play that's going to train and install the knowledge and confidence that they need. It's the most essential thing we do, is leveraging the GMTSS and training system, okay? So anyway, now here's what I say. After we get through that process and the 1 to 10, and we work through 1s, 10s, or anywhere in between, and we get them to buy a ticket if they're in between that 1 to 10. And they say there are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'll say, all right, let me ask you a question, Matt. You're an 8. That's awesome. Like I said, I only work at 10s. Matt, if I can guarantee you this was going to work, and in 2 years you'd be $2,100 a week, would that make you a 10 right now and be ready to start right away? Write that down, guys. Write that closing statement down. So, Matt, I understand you're an 8. That's great, right? But as you know, like I said, I only work with 10s. So let me ask you a hypothetical. If I could guarantee this, and this business would build you a $2,100 per week or better income in the next 2 years, and I could guarantee it, would that make you a 10 and you'd start right away? This is another test close. Would that make you a 10 and start right away? Now he's going to say 90+% of the time, yeah, absolutely. If you can guarantee it, yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, listen, so that's it. If I can guarantee this would work, would that make you a 10 and want to start right away? If there was no doubt, I could absolutely guarantee it. And he's going to say yes. And here's what I do. I go back to posture again. I say, all right, Matt, Awesome. Well, listen, as you imagine, I can't guarantee anything except for one. And that is, if you don't test this thing out, if you don't try it, then you won't know. If you don't test it out, I can't guarantee you a thing. So here's what I recommend you do. Since you're not a 10 yet, and you're in there between 10 and 2 and 9, wherever they fall, right? Since you're a 6 or a 5 or a 4 or a 3, I'm going to recommend that you test this out. You trial run this thing. Let me explain to you what I mean. We want you to try some product, right? I'll give you a sample, but also I'm going to give you a home shopping list. I hope you guys are writing this down. Home shopping list, and have you pick a couple things that you want to get started with. I'll give you a nice discount to try this stuff because it's part of the trial run process. I want you to experience a product because that's going to give you confidence in the business, right? And I'll give you a nice deep discount since you're evaluating a process. You can even do it whatever, however you want to. Give a wholesale price, whatever you want to do, or just give them a small discount, whatever, however you want to do it. And a sample. But also during that process, you already are going to go to training because that's the key, is attend the conference and see the underlying currents, the undercurrents of how the business works. You'll see everything below the surface and how we train. But I want you to run this up a flagpole in front of some people and see if they salute it. That's the terminology that JR uses, and I love it. I want you to run this up a flagpole in front of some people and see if they salute it. What I mean by that is, let's get some people to evaluate this thing and give you their honest opinion and judgment of what this is. Just to evaluate, not to get them interested, not to get them in, but just to see how they respond to it and see if they might know the right people and just give you their honest feedback. See, you're not in the business right now, and everybody's going to have an opinion about this. Positive or negative, they're going to have an opinion. And everybody loves to give their opinion. How many people have noticed that, right? People love to give their opinion. Leverage that at this moment. This is a time where it's the easiest time for Matt to get people to come look at this because they're going to feel like they're coming to protect him. You guys follow what I'm saying? They're going to feel like they're coming to help him, save him. And that's great. You might even say, hey man, I need to make sure I'm not missing something. Can you come here and just try to punch some holes in this and tell me if I'm missing something? I trust your judgment. I value your opinion. That is the approach that you want to give those 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8s, and 9s. You're not trying to get people in, and you want to emphasize that when you're following up, when you're doing this, is all at one time to follow up. That the last thing I want you to do is try to get people interested. I just want you to get people to come and evaluate and organically see if any of them give you a really solid referral or if they accidentally get interested like I did when I saw it. That's what we call a trial run. You try the product, you get some people to evaluate the business and give you their honest judgment and see how it evolves from there. Because if you have 10 people in a row that evaluate it and you don't get any referrals and none of them become accidentally interested like I did when I evaluated it, it's probably not going to work from you, and the trial run probably just took you to a 1. Because you're not finding the right people. And I can be honest with you, tell you, to me at that point in time, if you had 10 in a row and none of them wanted to do it, and you didn't get a referral from it, I probably don't want those people either. So it's a good trial run for me too with you. I want to make sure we're going to work together well, and this is going to work, right? I want everybody getting this. You getting this psychology here. It's the most brilliant thing. And I got this from JR. So, but remember, you have to know when to apply it in those moments when people they're not ready to go. But when you get a bulldozer that's like me or Vina, for example, personality trait wise, right? And there's others on here too. Probably like a Martin Kreitz, by the way, too. Like when you get people like that where like they know what they want, they decide it, you aren't stopping them. If you try to process those people to death, they'll be gone and you'll miss a star. You follow what I mean? So just be aware there's times to go. There's times to go, right? So anyway, and that's why you do that, okay? And it's a very, very key process. And if I could guarantee this would work for you right away, would you be a 10 and want to get started right now? Sure. Okay. Well, all right. Great. Well, listen. Obviously, as you know, I can't guarantee anything, but except for one thing, and that's if you don't try this, nothing will ever change. You won't know. So while you're evaluating, you're going to this training. Let's test this out to see if it'll work for you. And here's what I mean by that. I want you to try some product. I'll give you a sample, but I also want you to take this home shopping list. And I want you to pick 2 or 3 items you're willing to try. I'll give you a nice discount on it, right? You buy it, but I'll give you my cost or however you want to do it, right? This is producing BV for you, by the way, and experience with the product and education to them to try it. And then simultaneously, let's run up a flagpole in front of some people and see if they salute it, or at least give you referrals of people that are going to salute it. And all I want you to do is have them evaluate it and not get them interested. You guys get this? It's magic in motion, right? And we'll schedule a time. You can invite them there. And for people that can't make the scheduled follow-up where you're going to have them come out, you schedule that follow-up right at that moment. When's the best time for us to get together? Because you're going to have some questions to be answered. But then after we do your questions and answers, we're going to start inviting people there to evaluate and give you their personal judgment. And I want you to get, 3 to 5, 2 or 3 times in a row. We'll keep rescheduling 2 or 3 of these. We want to get at least 10 people in front of us over time. It might even be 1 at a time. We can do 10 in a row. It doesn't matter. But we want to get people to start evaluating this. We want to see how after through 10, if we have at least 2 to 4 people that want to be customers and either they give you referrals or they become accidentally interested like I did. Right? Because when you put this in front of the right people, they'll volunteer. And then, by the way, and here's the key, guys, ready? And then after that happens, I can guarantee you this is going to work. And you'll be a 10. But if it doesn't happen, you probably evolve down to a 1 at that point. And here's the best part. I'm not offended. You're not offended. We tried it out. It didn't work out. We'll shake hands, part ways friends. You can be a customer. And maybe revisit in the future if you find some good people. You follow what I mean? Save some money. So it's not offensive either way, and you're postured up. So that's how you get to that point, okay? So that right there is where I'm at, and I booked a follow-up. I never leave a meeting. In fact, those of you who have been doing meetings with me recently, I've been saying at the end of them, by the way, if I'm the presenter and I'm doing anything but a UBP, and I'm doing one for Matt, right? Like I did with you, Matt, the other day. I said, listen, if I hang up, I need to. It's my job to make sure that you guys have a follow-up booked now. And if you don't have the time and place booked with your follow-up, I'm failing you, I'm failing Matt, and I'm failing your chances of this being something for you, or at least you understanding enough to give a good referral to Matt. Either way, it's hurting everybody involved. So my job is to make sure that we don't get off until you guys have a time and place that you're going to meet back up and follow up. When's the best time? Do it right now. And I make sure it's done. And I learned that from JR. And I've made the mistake. Don't get me wrong. I'm not perfect. I've made the mistake is leaving it on there. Matt, make sure you get back with Miriam. I'm going to hang up now. Book your follow-ups. And then guess what happens? Once I'm off, I'm the third party. I'm the person they have to kind of follow because I have the authority for the presentation. Matt says, all right, well, Miriam's like, I'll see you tomorrow, Matt. We'll talk tomorrow. Oh, yeah. And Matt's a friend, and he's not going to push that hard. You follow what I'm saying? And then I failed them. I need to be the installer of that follow-up. You got me? And then saying, by the way, so if we're doing 6:30 for the follow-up tomorrow night, leave that first 30 minutes for Q&A for you and I. But between now and then, I want you to try to get a few people to come and just give you their honest, evaluated opinion and judgment. They can't give it to you until they see it, though. Don't let them tell you, they have to see it and look first before their opinion is valid. Because people are going to assume we're something we're not. This is what I call, let me write this down. This is the next step. You inoculate. You inoculate them. So after you go through step 1, giving them a testimonial of you or somebody else. Step 2, ask them what they thought was so unique or different. Right? And then that's 2A, then 2B. Scale of 1 to 10. Right? And then 3, scheduling your follow-up, right? Or using that test close, right? Step 3, where you schedule a follow-up to get them started. That's step 3 for somebody that's a 10. Or step 3 for somebody that is anything but a 10 is schedule or you do the 1 to where would you fall on a 1 to 10? There and there. Okay, great. You're an 8. Well, I can only work with 10s, right? So let's get you educated and get you plugged back in and keep coming back until you're a 1 or a 10. So we know what to go forward with you. And then the best way to do that is attend a training so you can understand the business from the inside out. And you get 6 months worth of education training in a weekend, right? And then you go to the guarantee. That's 4. You go to the guarantee. If I could guarantee this would work for you, you're an 8 right now. Would you become a 10 and get started right away if I can make the guarantee? Well, I can't make a guarantee. The only guarantee I can make is if you don't try it, nothing will ever change. So step 5 is the trial run installation. Following? The trial run installation. And in there, you could put ticket sale. You might even want to put that as 4B, 4A, and 4B. But ticket sale has to be in there, right? However you guys are formulating this and drawing it out in your little flowchart process that makes the most sense in your brain. If anybody wants help with this, I understand that this learning it at a first time of me not providing you a flowchart that I use can make this sound complicated. It's not, but I will spend the time with individually, whoever wants to, and just help you. And you can get on and we'll help you create that flowchart for you. The way your brain works, though, it has to be the way your brain works, right? If I give you mine, it's my idea. It's got to be your process moving forward. Okay, so I'll help you do that if you're getting that. So that's 5, and then steps, and then installing the trial run. Try a product. Check out the home shopping list. Yep, correct. That's correct, Vince. And then go from there. And then don't forget about the next step is 6, inoculate. So you booked your follow-up while you installed the trial run. You recommended them to have people there, and you taught them the evaluation approach. The last thing is inoculate. If you get to this point and forget this last process, this is where people end up in the prospect protection program. How many people know what I'm talking about? How many people know what I mean? You did all this work, right? Right? That's right, Sal. Listen, let me explain. Sal said something important. Let me just make my point, and I'll go back to what Sal just said. You do all this work. You get all this progress moving forward, right? And then you get to the end, and you're so excited that you have the follow-ups booked, you forget what inoculate means for Shanti. So let me explain to you what inoculation means. An inoculation is when you give, let's think of the medical term, and let's not get into the complicated situation we're in right now, or whether you believe or not, it doesn't matter. Let's just talk about what an inoculation is supposed to be, right? An inoculation is you give a weakened version of something that can be dangerous, so your body learns how to tolerate it and builds a tolerance to it. Does that make sense? Right. That's what inoculation is. So at the end of, after I'm done doing this whole full process, I am going to inoculate them. And what I mean by that is I'm going to say something like this. All right, great. Exactly. We're immunizing them, for Shanti, against what is going to surely happen for a good number of people, and that's this. For Shanti, when you leave today, right, you just saw some amazing things that's never been done before. But I'm sure you realize now that this is completely different from any preconceived notions that you had before you came here, isn't it? And you have her agree. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm just going to let you know that when you leave, what's going to happen is when you start bringing this up to people, which I want you to, and you ask them to evaluate, there's going to be people that are going to have some preconceived notions, and they're going to assume we're something we're not. And in most instances, they're supportive. But there's those rare instances where some people will not be very nice. And they're going to be negative, all out negative, because they've heard of things that they think we're not, and they're putting us into a box that we don't belong in, but because they have preconceived notions. Just understand that is normal, and if that happens, which will, just know it happened to all of us, but over time they'll learn that this is different. Even if they don't decide to get, to evaluate right away. Do you guys get that? What did I do? I just gave Sal or Vershanti a little weakened piece of what, pathogens out there could try to penetrate, right? Just a little bit. So now I just build up a tolerance. So now when it happens, they're like, instead of being surprised, and then they hated how it felt, and they weren't expecting it, and then they go hide in their bed for 2 weeks because somebody got negative, they say, man, Don told me this was going to happen. And you already told them how to respond to it and deal with it and not have it bother them. Does that make sense to you guys? How many people get it? Just raise your hand, right? You got it? So important. But if they don't understand that, you don't inoculate. Yeah, military recruiters do it too. You're exactly right, Maleva. Right? Just be aware. People are trying to talk you out of it, But so important, right? And then they know how to handle it. And they're like, and the amount of times that I had people come, my buddy Rick Jenkins, I played baseball with him when I was a kid. Still part of business. None of you know him because he hasn't been engaged very long or often in the past couple of years, but he still gets a product. He still, whatever. But he says, Don, I got to tell you something. It happened exactly how you thought. And I will tell you, there's no way that I would have come back if you wouldn't have told me that may happen. Because it would have totally taken me off guard. So totally sideswiped me, and I never would have come back. I'd have been super negative, right? It would have just completely deflated me. But I realized, because you said, hey, it happens for everybody. It happens to you, and you just went through it because it's only a matter. Sometimes people take time to be open to even listen and look and seeing what makes us different, but they're going to have those preconceived notions because there's a lot of bad things out there, and we're not one of them. That's my terminology I use. There's a lot of bad things out there, and we're not one of them. I say that all the stinking time. But sometimes it takes time for them to see it so they understand it. This is a long-term play, not a fast-paced hit and go away type of thing. That's why it's worth doing this and taking your time. See, I always explain this to people that have had network marketing experience, right? Because people that have network marketing experience, maybe they got in a thing and it was like a bottle rocket. How many people know what I'm talking about? How many people know what a bottle rocket is? As soon as you light it up, it has a really fast fuse, and then it goes, wee, wee, and then, psh, real fast, super quick, makes a bunch of noise for a second, and then nothing, it's gone. I want people to know this is not a bottle rocket. This is like a diesel engine, and it's really cold out, and you forgot to plug in, the block heater, which you have to plug in a block heater for a little bit and warm that block up before you even start it. Anybody that lives up way up north that had a diesel engine knows what I'm talking about, right? Like right, Joel? Right? In Minnesota, like you got to plug in that thing and you got to let that block heat up a little bit so the fuel's not gelatinous, right? And then you can start it. And even when you do it, it's running rough and it's like, and then it smooths out as it warms up more. And then you get a diesel. And as long as it's got fuel, that thing will run for 500 to 1,000 to 1,000,000 miles, some diesel engines, because they just go and go and go and go. But it can take some time for that thing to get going. You understand? That's the way I look at the business, and you have to realize the staying power and the longevity. So that's how I wrap it up, and then I congratulate them. For making the decision of trying it out. And giving it a test run, and let them know that they do need to get a proper sample size. It has to be done with 10 people, even if we have to do one at a time for the next a couple weeks. You don't have to get them all at once. But if we don't go through a proper sample size of 10, you're not going to get the proper analysis to be able to judge against. And that's the last thing you throw in there. That makes sense? You guys are all feeling this? By the way, how many people saw something here that like fireworks went off in your mind because it's going to be totally different by the way you apply yourself in the business? Isn't that crazy? How many, even for those of you who have been around a while, right? And by the way, even if you heard this before, how many people, including me, by the way, saw things that lately you've been missing? Yeah, me too. I'm like, man, and I've been doing it for 22 years. I'm like, I feel like a dick because I'm like, dude, I so screwed up for Miriam. You know what I mean? Or I totally messed up for Sal when I should have planned the other day with him. Or I wasn't persistent enough with Matt, or whatever it is. I'm thinking to myself, like, dude, don't fail your people by taking the easy way out and hoping they'll do it without you. You follow what I mean? Do it properly. And don't be afraid to ask the tough question. That is probably the one lesson about this. What's the tough question? Is there anything preventing you from getting started tonight? Because you're afraid that they're going to say, yeah, I don't know if I have the money, and then you have to deal with that process. You know what I mean? It's not that you hope it's a yes, but the test close gives you an option to where they're not feeling guilty to answer it, because you're not saying, all right, so you ready to get started now? No, I'm not. Okay, why not? And then it's all defensive. But you say the question is there anything preventing you from getting started now right away? No, there's not. Because sometimes there have hesitation, but then you make them think. So is there anything preventing you from getting started now and going right away? You said you were 10. Is there anything getting started right now? Or if they say they're an 8, and I say, well, if I can guarantee you this would work, would that make you 10? Yeah. Is there anything about, and sometimes you can use that test close with an 8 or a 7 too. Well, let me ask you a question. What would prevent you from getting started right away? Right? It's a test close. What would prevent you to get started? That's right. Great point, Matt. Does that make sense, guys? So good. So good, so good. And you have that. And now they're like, yeah, there is. So a negative response is using a positive word. Understand the psychology of this too. Like if I say to Vina, I say, hey, Vina, are you ready to get started? And she says, no. Now her negative response, or something that can be taken as negative response, is accompanied with a negative word, no, which no one likes. But if I say, is there anything preventing you from getting started right away? And she says, yeah, there is. It's a positive word. Does that make sense? So now it's not taken as negatively as everyone. And she gives me the reason up front. Let me throw one more at you. Okay? If somebody says, yeah, I just don't have the money. This is another question you can add, and write this down. And a lot of this stuff you won't use all the time, but you'll have time to apply it. Okay, so Matt, let me just make sure I'm clear. Let me just make sure I'm clear. So what you're saying is, if money wasn't an option, you would start now. If money wasn't an issue, and you could come up with, and you had the money, you'd start now. That's what that's what I'm hearing. Is that a correct observation from what you just said? Now, the reason why I asked that is because if it's truly the reason, they're going to say, yeah, absolutely. But if they say, well, no, I'm just not sure about the product. Okay, so what you're telling me is, if you had the money and you knew the product was good, you'd start now. If they get to a third excuse, you have to be able to identify this. They are just trying to be nice, and they're afraid they're going to hurt your feelings by kind of answering the way they think you want them to answer. And you need, at that point, take it away. Does that make sense? You guys getting this? So Matt says, well, if I had the money, I don't know. I'm not sure about the product. And I say, all right, so what you're telling me is, if money's not an issue, Pat, and the product's not, and you try the product and it's great, you get started right away, as long as those two things were great. Is that accurate? Well, I also still have to talk to my wife and run it by her. Okay, great. All right, well, here's the deal, Pat. At this point in time, right, you're not going to hurt my feelings in the slightest if this isn't for you, because it's sounding like it's not to me. So I don't want to pressure you at all, and I don't want you to feel guilty at all to say this is not for you, because I'm only looking for tens. I'm looking for people that want to do this or at least want to try this thing out. So at this point in time, is that kind of where you're at? Are you kind of feeling like this is probably not a fit for you, or at least at this moment, right? Because it's not going to hurt my feelings. I'm fine with it either way. You're not going to hurt my feelings. You understand what I'm saying? And most of the time, if they gave you 3 or more excuses after you did those tests, so what you're saying, so let me just be clear. If what you're saying is this, that's what they're doing. They're just afraid to hurt your feelings. And I'm going to tell them every time, hey, I'm fine with either way. Whatever you decide it's no sweat off my back. It's not going to affect my belief in this whatsoever. I want you to do what's best for you. I'm going to do what's best for me. And you give them a way to save face and not hurt your feelings. You say, all right, great. Listen, why don't we just do it this then, Matt? Would you have any problem being a supporter and being a customer of mine? No, not at all. Okay, great. Let's set up a follow-up, right? Here's a sample. I'm going to teach you how to use the thing, and we'll set you up with a free customer account. And then I just want you to think to yourself on people that you know that might be interested. I'm also going to send you a digital credibility video, just so you understand what makes us different. So going forward, you know how to make comfort. Because obviously, at this point in your life at least, it's not fit for you. Maybe we can follow up in a few months, and maybe timing's changing. Maybe you'll be looking for something, or you just keep me in mind. If you're looking for something, give me a call, right? I'm going to take it away from them, and I'm going to say no to them instead of having them say no to me. Does everybody kind of get that? And by the way, it makes it nicer for them, and they also realize at that point, if I give Don a referral, he's not twisting anybody's arms, and they're not going to be mad at me for referring him. You guys got to realize how big of a deal that is. Because if they feel pressure from you, they're never going to give you a referral, and you'll wonder why none of the people that saw the plan that weren't interested gave you a referral ever. Well, because they don't want their friends to be pissed at them because they sicked the hound dog on them. That's going to latch onto their leg and not let go. You follow what I mean? So that's just another bit of advice on these training topics, and we're just at an hour now, so I need to wrap up. But this was so important to go a little longer than normal because it's solid gold. And as you do these things, you'll identify. And Vince, thanks for putting that kind of outline. Okay. So let me just do a quick run through real quick. Number 1. Get your testimonial. Either you give them your own, or if it's in a small group, you get a testimonial provided from people that are in it, and what this has done for them or where it's taken them. Number 1. Number 2, you go around the horn and say, what did you like most, or what did you find most unique or different about this than what you suspected up front? Have them highlight that, because that they can never say this is like everything else if you ask them that question and they answer it. Right? That's that. Right? What did you think was most unique or different? Okay, awesome, great, I agree, right? Let me ask you this on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being that I'll be a customer, 10, where would you be at, right? And if they're a 1, you book a follow-up, set up with a customer account, right, and get them a trial. If they're a 10, you schedule their registration, right? But and remember at the registration, if anybody needs help with this, I'll do them with you. If you want to do that little, the preparation to the registration, that's when we do that with full disclosure, and we let them know everything that's a part of the process of getting registered. We'll do that together. And if they're
quick question on that, Don, while you're there with the registration thing.
Well, let me get through it first, Scott, and then I'll go back to that. I'm going to keep this simple, again, just so we're clean, and then I'll come back to you, okay? So we do that, and then if they're anywhere between a 2 and a 9, now I say, well, great, that's awesome. I'm glad you're a 5 or a 6 or a 7. Or, hey, that's great, you're a 2. That means you're not a 1. You have a little bit of interest. Here's what I'm going to recommend you do. I only work with 10s, by the way. So until you're a 10, I'm never going to ask you to start. Is that cool? So, just to keep that in mind. But what we need to do is I tell everybody that's either if they're a 1 or a 10, they're decisive, they know exactly. But if they're anywhere between there, I want them to keep coming back until they become a 10. And then you book them into a training, first step. At that point in time, you need to get educated as fast as you can so you can become either, learn more about it so you can become a 1 or a 10, right? And you get them a training and you sell them a ticket on the spot, right? And then I'm going to ask them if I can guarantee you that now this is how I introduce the trial run. Let me ask you a quick question. You're obviously an 8. We're going to have you go to the training. You got the ticket. But if I can guarantee this will work, this is how I install the trial run for people that are between 2s and 9s. If I can guarantee you this would work for you, would that take you from a 5 to a 10? If I can guarantee you in 2 years you would make it $2,100 a week or more, would you start right away at that point? Would that make you a 10? Yeah, absolutely would. Right? And now, by the way, that's one of those other test quizzes. If they say, no, probably not, they're telling you answers that they think you want to hear, and you might want to just take it away from them at that point. You know what I mean? You follow what I mean here? You just got to be able to find those signs and realize they're trying not to hurt your feelings. You know what I mean? Just like, hey, understand, be nice about it. Hey, you're not going to hurt my feelings if this isn't for you. I'm not trying to convince you to do anything you don't want to do, right? Like, I want you to be comfortable referring your friends to me, because if it's not for you, that's great. But there's people out there that are praying for something like this right now, So just be aware of that. So that's what we do there, and we book, and we, if I can guarantee you, great. All right. Well, the only way I can guarantee is if we test this thing out. And here's what I want to do to test it out. Have you try some product? Here's a sample. Here's a home shopping list. Pick 2 or 3 things you want to try and buy. I'll give you a really good discount. And then let's get some people to run this up a flagpole in front of it and see if they salute it. I just want to get evaluations. And we want to get, a few at a time, but we want to go get a decent sample size, 8 to 10 people. But only 1, 2, 3 at a time, just to get their feedback. People that you trust and value their opinion most, you just want to ask them to come and give you their honest opinion and evaluation of this. And remember, they can't give it to you without seeing it, right? We booked that in, and we booked the file. We got that, and we teach them the evaluation approach. Valuation approach, right? You're teaching the evaluation approach right there, so they know. And then I say, now, by the way, when you leave tonight, and then I'm going to inoculate. I sold them a ticket. I booked a follow-up. I'm going to inoculate. When you leave tonight, and that's the last step. When you leave tonight, be aware that when you start talking to people, most people are going to be responsive and they'll be willing to evaluate, but some people may have some preconceived notions. Here's the thing I want you to remember. This is the key here. Right? There's a lot of bad things out there. We're not one of them, but there's a lot of bad things out there. But sometimes people will assume we're something that we're not. Until they see it, they're going to have that preconceived notions. I know I did. It took me 4 months to look because I had those preconceived notions. So I totally understand. So just be aware. If they don't respond right away, or if they kind of feel a little hesitant, be comfortable with that, and don't let it derail you. And some people might be all out negative because they heard people try things and they think we're something we're not. Well, they're nothing like it, but they might assume it. So just be aware that happens. That's normal. It's happened to me too. Just be aware. Inoculate. Congratulations for doing this. I'm so excited to potentially work with you. And by the way, if this doesn't work out at any given time, I'm not going to be offended. We're going to shake hands, part ways as friends. I'll be happy to have you as a customer and a referral source. But I want you to evaluate this until you honestly can say you're a 1 or a 10. And we'll use this entire process that we went through moving forward. And I can't wait to meet some of the people that you have evaluate the business. If anybody gives you a really, really hard time, I'm here. Get them on the phone with me, and I can probably at least get them to evaluate it for you and overcome their negative enough to look. And I want them to come. I want people to come and try to punch holes in it. It's the most perfect plan I've ever seen in my life. So I love those types. I'm cool with it. Bring them, right? I know the answers because I lived it, right? And I know how this thing works, right? And also, if they're super negative, I'm going to tell you, yeah, I can overcome this guy's objections, but I'm not going to, because you don't want to work with that guy. You follow what I'm saying? That's really, you can feel it. You know how you can feel it and sense that? You don't want to have somebody like that because they're just going to cause problems later if anything goes at all awry. And there's no entrepreneurial endeavor that goes perfectly in a straight line. You know what I mean? It's always, you know what I mean? Like, no matter what you do, there's always, a learning curve involved. And that's it, guys. That's pretty much it. What I want to do now is I'm going to keep it going, but if you're watching the recording, we're going to open this up for questions. Feel free to stay on, but I am going to open this up for questions. And for anybody who wants, if you guys want to blog out, I know it's late, but I'll stay on for you guys who want to leave, and I appreciate you guys. Let me know if I can help you master your diagram for yourself. and put it in a note format so you can follow that process with everybody, okay? So you can do it, have it with you when you're doing your meetings, by the way. Like right now, I can have it in front, like I have it right now. I have it on my phone looking at it. I wouldn't do it with a phone, but you can have, like, when you're doing your meeting, so you know you don't miss one of these things in your process, right? Me and Pat have gone deep into this many, many, many times. But this is just something that you can apply both in person and virtually, right? This works both. And it gives you your little insurance policies when they financially commit to a ticket, when they commit to you, they register if they're right. Like, there's so many catches here that you cause people to become hopeless successes, JR calls it. And that's what this process does. And if you go back to the original master building techniques, JR says after they see it, they only have two choices to get to start or try it. I always never forget that. There's times JR will start them. Why? Because they're ready. The right person, success loves speed, especially for the personality types like mine. You follow me? And they love to go, right? But just be cautious to not try to make other people be a personality type like you, Vina, right? Or me. I expect people. I'm one of the funniest things when Vina first started, she goes, I don't understand how people don't see it and want to start and want to do this and want to do that. I'm like, yeah, they don't have your personality. You know what I mean? And by the way, you weren't that simple either. You know what I mean? Like, I had to like twist your arm to get you to go to convention, and you follow what I mean? We forget like I was negative, all out negative for 4 months, but when I saw it, it was like the seas parted and my mind opened up. You know what I mean? So anyway, all right, Scott, thanks for being with us, guys. I'm glad you were patient. I'm glad you took notes, and I want to help every single one of you master this. Get your chart done, but I want to do meetings with you, and I'll help you do this at the end of your meetings so you see it done, because I'm going to tell you, I didn't master this until I watched JR do it when we were in London together. And I actually physically watched it happen and watch it be done. And then I was like, oh, I caught stuff that maybe I didn't say tonight, but I do it, but I don't remember to say it. But you know what I mean? I noticed that with JR, when we were doing it together. So, Scott, go ahead.
Talking about the registration, training wise and all that. On our learning center, on the bottom of the learning center, it says for registering. I started going on it, but I didn't want to go too far. Is that a training registration that I can't mess nothing up or not?
I got to look at it. I'm not sure. So what I created is I created what's called a registration cost breakdown sheet. It's a one-pager. And pretty much it goes through the application fee, the qualifying product volume. It has the training tickets, both local and corporate. I tell them it's not an a la carte menu. This is the process to get started. It has the auto ship on it and the UFMS, and then the annual renewal. So they are aware. It's full disclosure. Everything that they need to know cost wise is right there, and there's no surprises. Right? Okay. And once I go through that, if they don't have any issues, they're off to the races and they're ready to go. What's up, Brandon? How are you, man? So you guys have access to that. I just updated it. In fact, here let me just show you guys. I'll show it to you guys real fast. Whoops. You cannot minimize Zoom when you're recording a meeting. Never saw that before. Okay, well, let's do this then. Let me just get this. Here we go. Here it is. Registration cost breakdown sheet. Okay. I can't believe that it doesn't let me. Okay, here we go. Share. All right, here it is. Here it is, guys. Here's the updated one. So here's what it looks like. I put this in a little folder. In fact, I'll show you. When I register people in person, I have a little folder. If I don't register in person, I have a Dropbox folder, and the stuff that's in this folder I send to them, right? And in that folder is this is part of it, but I can actually tell you what's in it right now. It has the About MA PDF. It has a daily, weekly, basic 5 checklist, an action plan essentially. It has the Getting Started guide, the digital version, so they can download it. And it has this sheet that I was just telling you guys about, the registration cost breakdown sheet. And it has the unfranchised PIN level sheet, so it tells them all the income levels that people have accomplished that they can shoot for. Just to help me get started, right? It's a simple thing that has some good content to get them rolling and going forward. But this is it. So it breaks it down, the estimated registration. I say estimated registration cost can be $400 to $800. Why? Because some people want to get more product than just a kit. And they also need to buy a ticket. So it's not just like $449 plus tax, you're done. You need to get your local and your corporate ticket when you register. In fact, I always tell people I would prefer you buy the ticket. If you can't afford all of it, do the ticket first. Don't worry about the registration, because I don't want to sell you a sports car that can go 200 miles an hour without a steering wheel. I want you to get the steering wheel first, and then when you get the car, you can pop the steering wheel on and you can drive it. But if you get started and you don't go to training, you don't have the steering wheel. You get the steering wheel at the training, right? You have to know how to steer it, because what's the point of getting in a car that goes 100, 200 mile an hour and not have a steering wheel? You're going to crash, right? And I don't want to set you up for that failure. I want to make sure you're trained to know how to run the business. So that's that. Application fee, the entry qualification product, the tickets, local and corporate, the auto ship with the UFMS, and the annual renewal. All a part of it. Estimated cost $400 to $800. But if they do the fast start kit, I gotta change this. $449. I changed it to $140. This is $449. I just updated this and I forgot to do that. $449 plus tax and ticket, and that's a fast start kit option, right? This tells them ongoing estimated monthly spend. Remember, this doesn't say unfranchised auto ship. It doesn't say requirement, by the way. Be cautious when you're talking to people. This is not a requirement. Auto ship's not a requirement. It's a monthly accrual option. It's not a requirement. A requirement is 150 BV per quarter to keep from purging. But auto ship's not a requirement. If you do manually 150 BV per quarter and you do your 41000, you won't purge. Now, you might forget to do the volume, but I always say that auto ship dummy proofs the whole process, and it makes sure that you are staying on top of using your own product, right? But you have to be cautious that you don't use the improper terminology when people are asking. But anyway, that's that. So I will update this for you guys, and get it uploaded in the resources area of the Discord page, and then also the I'll put it in files on the Facebook group as well. But then you guys you also have the link to that Dropbox file, so you can go. What'll happen is when you get the link to it, you can save it to your Dropbox. But when I update it, it updates for you in your Dropbox too when I update it, so it always stays updated if there's some updating that we need to do, right? So just simplifying this. Annual renewal is $119.95. What, did I miss that too, Steve? My bad. All right, I'll go change that too. That's correct.
Hey, Don, Scott, in order to answer your question, it just gives you all the directions and on how to